We have here a game against
Dzindzichashvili.
Dzindzichashvili.
Dzindzichashvili was in that time one of the best players in the world. I mean, he was in the first 20, 25 players in the world. And in our game here, he tried to take the revenge because we met also in the Olympiad. And I won the game after a very tactical game, very, very interesting one. And here it was the possibility for revenge. We played the big tournament from Clarin, organized by the newspaper Clarin, a few days after the Olympiad from Buenos Aires.
So also in Argentina.
Also in Argentina. A few days afterwards, they organized a very big tournament. And we had our game here. After this move order with e5 very quickly, black tries to trade very quickly the queens and have a possibility to play on the black squares later on. If he has time to do this, it's no danger at all, you know. For instance, if now you play something like knight f3, bishop e2 or something, black has no problems at all, and maybe later on he's even a little bit better. But after f4, like I played in this move order, he has to be very careful, you know, the next moves, because there are some tactical tricks, you know, all the time, you see. Instead of f6 here, he could try to play, for instance, knight c6. After knight c6, knight f3, knight d4, this is the alternative, knight d4. And now after bishop d3, white is better anyway, d3. Yeah. Now he has to take in f3, you take back in f3, and later on you take in e5 and you push again the pawn in f4. And white is always a little bit better. Any kind of position, white has the initiative, you know. That was the alternative. So the move that he played was a little bit of a novelty, you know, f6. But now after f takes e5, f takes e5, bishop g5 check is a very unpleasant surprise, because after bishop g5 check, you don't have time to go back with the king, because, for instance, king e8, let's say, no? Because after knight d5, you are almost lost immediately, you know. What to do now?
This rook is almost lost.
Yeah, knight a6 is the only move.
Yes.
Knight a6. And now after knight a6, c5, let's say, again, what can black play? The threat is terrible, you know. Bishop takes a6 and knight takes c7 check, and he loses the rook. So it's a catastrophe from the opening, you know, immediately. So, okay, he has to be very careful. And now everything is almost forced now after bishop g5, bishop f6, the only move, no? So knight f3, and he played normal knight d7. And again, now after knight d5, he loses at least a pawn here, in any position. So the opening is excellent for white. White has a small edge, but very clear, and he has very difficult game.
Which pawn he loses?
Well, you'll see the game.
Okay.
Now he played h6. The h6 probably is the only move. Because if he doesn't play h6, what can he play? Let's say c6, for instance. c6 loses immediately instead of h6.
Yes.
Yeah. Instead of h6.
Yes.
c6 is mistake. No. Now you have time to take there in f6. Now he has to take with g, knight g takes f6. No? And now after knight takes e5, he can resign. Yes. He has no time to take. In e5, he loses everything with check, you know. And after rook f8, for instance, f8, yeah. And now you have time to play big castle, no? Long castle, and the threats are terrible again, you know. No?
Yeah.
So h6 is the only move. He was very surprised, but he played the best moves in the, you know, the future part of the game, you know. So he took, and knight takes e5. Okay, now we have a pawn, but it's very difficult to win, you see, because he has control of the black squares later on. Yeah. Now the only move again, knight, rook g8. Yeah. Castle is check. Yeah. King e7. Bishop d3. Okay. And now again he found a fantastic move, the best. Knight g4. Okay. He has pawn down. He is pawn down, but he accepts to trade many pieces. Now you are forced to accept to trade the knight because he threatens already knight f2, winning the exchange.
Yes.
So you have to take in g4. Now it's very difficult to win this. You have a pawn, but it's very difficult to win. We'll see. Rook d8, king c2, and now c5, rook f8, yes, rook f8, rook f1, and now very good move again, c5. And now he wants to take control all the black squares. If somehow he arrives, let's say, with the king in e5, you have no chance at all to win the game. Because the white bishop from d3 doesn't do anything. You know,
Like a pawn.
he's like a pawn. You have to move something. So probably the best way to do is like we play in our game. I played here the move e5, I think. No, king is c3 first, yes. g5 again. Everything on the black squares. You see, e5, and now he has to play again on the black squares. Okay, b6. And now h3, bishop e6, and g4. The only idea for white is to play later on the bishop in f5. You see?
To connect the pawns.
If he takes, of course.
Yeah,
He doesn't
yeah.
take. No.
Yeah.
Okay. And now he took in f1, I took in f1, and now he made a mistake, in my opinion. The good possibility was to play probably rook f8, instead of h5. H5 is no good to open the game, but he was very, unsatisfied. I mean, he wasn't content at all by his position because he didn't have anything, and he had to wait to see what happens without a pawn. But here it's very difficult to try to win this position. Even if you take there and black takes back the rook, and you have time, let's say, to play bishop f5, no? And after king e7, how do you win this? You have to move the king in d3, no? And then he moves away the bishop in f7 or in g8, and he waits. You can't come in. This is the problem. You see? If you don't have control of the white squares, you can't come in. If you can come in, you can't win. It's very difficult to win. Probably white has a chance to win. It's clearly better with the pawn up and so on. But it's a long way to try to win. But instead, he thought that by opening the position, he has some counterplay and he has his own chance to try to do something, So, I mean, tactical game, and he played this move, h5, which opens completely the game. He has a tactical chance to try to do something, but white also, And I took in h5, and now the game is completely unbalanced. It's completely crazy position again. Rook h8 and bishop g6. White gives the pawn in h3, but now white has a chance to come with the king in the central position in e4. And at least we can move something, and the bishop from d3, where he didn't move too much, here the bishop is already very active in g6. You see, a very big difference. So, okay, we have this position, g4, and now we come with our king. So, rook d8 check, king e4, check, king e3, very good. And now he tries to take the central pawn. But now we have finally a good chance to move our h pawn, h6. Now the position is lost for black, but you have to demonstrate this, you see. And okay, now black took back his pawn, but our pawn now from h7 is extremely dangerous, and our king is better, our rook is better, our bishop is better. So therefore black is probably lost, but you have to play very precisely, with white. You have to realize the advantage. And therefore, the next phase of the game will be very interesting. Bishop e4. Now has to wait. He has no counterplay, he has to wait. Rook d1. Of course, he can't take because weak queen, no?
Yeah.
So has to wait. Rook e8, king f4, king g7. But now the position is very bad for black, you see, because he has to stay with the king in h8, no? And we can maneuver to come with our pieces and threaten something against the black king. The position is completely lost for black now, but in time trouble, it's very difficult to show it, you know. So
mistakes can happen.
Yeah, you need a very good technique here, you see, with white. So king h8, of course, bishop g6, check, and king g3. For the moment, you go back. No, but the king will come later on through h4, you see. So now again, the bishop is active for black, you see, bishop e2. And it seems that more or less the position is balanced again. But it's not the case because our pawn from h7 is much stronger than his pawn from g4. So therefore, white wins by force here. And the next move will be very, very convincing. You see, rook b8, rook d7, queen, bishop f3. And now we have time to attack the pawn and come with our king to g5 and later on to h6. You see. We want to come to h6, and we'll see. Has no counterplay. King g7, bishop f5, of course, has to wait. Okay, now finally we come with our king. Now he can't take the pawn because he loses the rook, you know. King takes h7, rook takes b6 check, and he loses the rook.
Okay.
Yeah. So has to move back, you know, to h8. And now finally we have time to come with our king. And it's much too much.
He resigned here.
He resigned because now everything is forced. For instance, g3, no?
Yes.
g3, the only move. King h6, g2, no? Bishop e6 threatens mate in one. Bishop e6. Rook g8 mate.
Yeah.
You see?
Yes.
The initiative was very important, you see. Therefore, I told you, his only mistake was the active move h5. But it's very difficult when you are a very strong grandmaster and the whole game you are forced to wait without doing anything, and your opponent plays all the time trying to win. Is very unpleasant, you see.
Very unpleasant and very...
very tiring also. You know, you are disgusted in one moment. You want to do something. You want to do something also, you know. So
it's very tempting.
Yeah, he had one possibility, h5. It was wrong, of course. What to do?
One try, that was...
it was too much already, you see. And afterwards was too late. Yeah.
Nice.
That demonstrates, you know, the possibility, the world class. You know, when you have such a position, is even more difficult to show why you win and how you win. It's even more difficult than playing, for instance, a sacrifice in d5 in Sicilian. To win something like this gives you more satisfaction because it's more difficult, and against a very strong grandmaster, of course, it's something special, you see.
Yeah.
But as I told you before, it's very difficult when you are a top grandmaster like this and you are forced to wait and you can't do anything. You know, it's very unpleasant. So therefore, of course, he played h5, and afterwards you saw the result. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
You're
Gheorghiu.
welcome.